or the Swiss decided to invade Palestine, you would have anti-Swiss sentiment. So I think that all of this has to be spelled out. And, well, if I may, my other little book that Jeff referred to about Jewish rejection of Zionism, you see, this is really important to understand that what is happening among Jews is also logical. I would say, well, I don't have sociological data, but the higher the income of the Jew, the more Zionist he's likely to be. And that's why you have Edelsons and others. And it may have nothing to do with Jewishness, but there is another very important group that is part of the lobby, the arms manufacturers. Israel is very important, both as a consumer and as a producer of arms. And there are very close connections between the American and Canadian, incidentally, armed producers and Israel. And these are very important parts of society because it's one of the wealthiest sectors of the economy. So the evolution of Zionism in the direction of fascism is perfectly predictable. And I would say that it certainly is not Bibi Netanyahu or Smotrich or Ben Gvir, also very much mentioned among those who say, well, how horrible these people are taking Israel in the wrong direction. I wouldn't say so. I say that they represent their embodiment of that trend towards fascism, which had been there from the beginning. And then maybe we have to be mindful of time. Jeff, if you want to take 2 minutes to give your kind of concluding thoughts, and then the final 2 minutes go to Yaakov. Excellent. Very briefly, this point that Yaakov made about the reaction of the Palestinians and the reaction of co-religionists in the Arab world was that resistance formed. And basically since 1996, when Netanyahu first became prime minister, he brought along with his American advisors the clean break doctrine. The clean break doctrine says that Greater Israel will control all of Palestine. There will never be a Palestinian state. But more importantly, even that in response to resistance movements like Hamas or Hezbollah or others, Israel's response will be to overthrow the governments in the Middle East that support those resistance movements. That's Netanyahu's insight. Don't fight the resistance, fight the governments that back them. So Israel has been on a war spree since 1996, and Wesley Clark famously told us about the 7 wars that the U.S. would fight. These are basically U.S.-Israel wars, and that list included Libya, Sudan, Somalia, Lebanon, Syria, Iraq, and Iran. And here we are. We've had several Iranian small wars. This is supposed to be the big one. So this is the logical effect also. You abuse your colonial settler. You push aside the local population. There's resistance. That resistance has its allies regionally, and you end up in a regional war. And this is the disaster that we're at. Very sad. Yaakov, please. Well, I think it's important to distinguish between Zionism as a political movement and Jews and Judaism, which may be a religion or ethnic group, whichever way you want to put it. Because this confusion really serves Israel and Zionism. Israeli leaders, whether they were socialists like Shimon Peres or Bibi Netanyahu or anyone else who would come later, will convince you that Israel represents the entire Jewish people. And for Israel, it's a source of legitimacy. For Jews, it's a source of shame and insecurity. So it's very important to see that Israel not only hasn't brought security to the Jews, that's what the Zionist movement was promising. In fact, the most insecure place for a Jew to live today, I think, is Israel, but it also brings insecurity to Jews in Michigan or in California, or in Montreal or wherever they live. Strangely enough, not in Tehran because Jews there don't identify with Israel. And the anti-Zionist government of Iran knows very well how to distinguish between Jews and Zionism. I've been to Iran. I even wrote about Jews in Iran. It's available on the internet, and I hope that they are not harmed by what Israel is doing to that country. And I think this is a fundamental insight from all of your work. Yaakov, Judaism is a wonderful and peace-loving and wise religion, and Zionism is a highly problematic political movement of various kinds, including Christians and Jews, but going over and beyond that. So please, everybody, we ought to love the Jews and work on the Zionist issue. And never hate anyone in any case, please. It only hurts.